respects to the elders of the Ngunnawal people, past and present. We are delighted to have you present to hear from the student delegates participating in this, the 4th annual Global Cross-Disciplinary Tournament. We're excited to have such a diverse group of students participating and sharing their ideas for the future with you. The International Alliance of Research Universities Global Cross-Disciplinary Tournament, also known as the GXt for short, is a student-driven initiative to promote undergraduate research and collaboration that crosses disciplinary and cultural boundaries. It's our aim to foster an academic environment that promotes, encourages and supports students to develop ideas to tackle complex problems as we increasingly recognise that singular disciplinary approaches are useful but certainly aren't solving some of the complex problems that we face in the world, and that greater collaboration is required. And we would like to, as part of the GXT, we are hoping to support undergraduates entering into that world and promote their capacity to conduct research and to enter into that world prior to graduation and prior to potential postdoctoral research in their futures work out in the world as they go off and be future leaders in their chosen sort of disciplines and perhaps cross-disciplinary adventures and avenues. So today I'm extremely happy to welcome our esteemed judges. We have Professor Takeo Fujiwara, who is a visiting delegate from the University of Tokyo. He is also he's involved in the IRU Global Summer program, so he's familiar with cross-disciplinary programs. We have Professor Gabriel Bema, who kindly presented to the students during the tournament, as well as being at the forefront of trying to create a interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary discipline and research, which is really exciting. We also have Ms. Dawn Hayter, who is a founder and the managing director of Igor Science, that looks at, she refers to herself as a human scientist, so very apt for the future of the body and use of sort of managerial psychology. Then we have the Pro Vice Chancellor of International Outreach, Dr. Eric Lathander, who also happens to be the ANU's IRU Vice President, Secretary, and Eric has a background in engineering, so I should also mention that Professor Takeo Fujiwara has a background in physics, so we've got quite a cross-disciplinary judging panel, so trying to choose the winning team. But the purpose of this tournament is it's about collaboration and it's about teamwork, and the focus is on all of the student delegates producing something that is worthy and potential of future research, future development, implementation, and support through stakeholders. So without further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Professor Ian Chubb, who is the Chief Scientist of Australia, who also happens to be the former Vice Chancellor of this university, ANU, who supported the first GXT which started back in 2011 before his move to his current position. So if you'd all give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Students, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be back here to see could we build closer relationships that were deep enough relationships to enable us to address some of the big issues that would confront humanity as best we could speculate that it might develop over the coming decades. And in some ways, during that period, we said, well, it's okay for ANU as where I was then and Singapore to think in these terms, but surely we ought to be thinking a little more broadly than that, and we ought to be thinking about other universities that we might try to encourage to be part of a bigger group, but a group where at least the universities or the presidents of those universities shared the same sort of views and hopefully ideals. So a short while later, he and I embarked on a round-the-world tour where we went to Beijing and Tokyo, to Copenhagen, to Oxford, to New Haven, to California, San Francisco, and I've forgotten anybody. Oh, Zurich, and that's probably all. Anyway, we visited 8 other universities and talked to our counterparts there. And I guess the good thing about it was that the 8 all agreed that doing something together was worthwhile. And as a consequence of that, the International Alliance of Research Universities was formed. And we had our first meeting here at ANU back around 2007, I guess it was, maybe 2008. And during the course of that and the discussion amongst those university presidents, one of the things that we really tried to set out to do, I guess it had 2 main themes, but they were clearly with a similar view and a similar outcome in mind. One was to ensure that we could collectively, across those various cultures, across those universities at different stages of development, across those universities with different contextual environments within their local communities and so on, that we could nevertheless address some of the big questions that confront humanity. And we talked about things like climate change, we talked about things like pandemics, we talked about things like ageing populations, we talked about the porosity of national boundaries and borders these days with people crossing all over. They're either controlled or not controlled, but nevertheless big population movements and some of the consequences of those population movements that there might be. So, the migration of diseases or whatever it happens to be that are endemic in one part of the world that get taken to another part of the world through the migration of people. So we were trying to think about some of the big issues that we could see, predictably, would affect the way humanity, the way the planet, and the people on the planet, the living systems on the planet indeed, developed over the next current decades. And I guess that the other thing that falls out of that when you think about it is that most of my colleagues at that time were as old as me at that time, and they're still as old as me. And so sooner or later, we're going to hand over the baton to a whole bunch of people coming along behind us. And what we wanted to be able to say was, as senior educators in our various countries, what we wanted to be able to say was, we've provided you or given you the opportunity to pick up some of the skills that you need to be able to work across boundaries and across cultures and across disciplines. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think, what we, people of my generation, think. Sooner or later, you guys are going to have to run the world, I say. Metaphorically, not literally. Well, maybe literally too, but in a purely democratic and wonderful system. But it really is important, I think, that we saw differently, that we wanted to do differently from what we've always done as universities, which was essentially with international students coming in and often going home again and so on. And there's, of course, it's always been that international link, but more formally, more structurally, develop processes by which students from the various universities to get together in groups and talk about issues and bring their perspectives to bear on those issues and learn from what the other students were saying. So we had, shortly after all this started, we had a symposium at ANU from IARU with students, PhD students from all the representative universities coming to talk about the problems that all of our countries have in different ways, but all of our countries have problems about water. How do we make sure we've got enough water? How do we make sure that it's potable? How do we make sure that we can keep it safe? How do we make sure that we've got enough water to be able to provide for humanity as it's growing? How do we actually provide enough food? We have presently 7 billion people on this planet, projected to grow to 9 billion by 2050. And we send to sleep every night approximately 1 billion of the present 7. And it's going to grow to 9. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that we provide people with food and water? That means that we're not going to have to contend with, manage some of the other social disruptions that might occur if people are hungry, starving, with malnutrition, and can't even get a decent and safe water supply. There are all sorts of issues that we as citizens of the world need to think through and think about as we think about the purposes of our education systems. And of course it's important that each university thinks about its local community. It's important that each university thinks about its local taxpayer, because at least in most of these taxpayers, whether they be in America or Denmark or England or Australia, contribute some of the cost of the education of the students who come through and of the research that's being done. But sooner or later, the big problems that are going to hit us are going to be international in dimension. And importantly, they're not going to be within the domain of one discipline. The way in which we control or adapt or manage, mitigate or solve things like pandemics will not be exclusively within the domain of medical practitioners or medical health experts. It will involve people from a variety of disciplines getting together to work out what is the best way to solve, manage, mitigate, do whatever with some of these problems. Climate change, you will read Australia's newspapers today and you will see politicians saying climate change is a myth, the planet warming is a myth because it's cold in Canberra today. When debate gets down to that absurd and puerile level, then we have to actually take a stand here. And it's people like me providing opportunities for people like you to make a decision, to build your principles, to build your value set, and to take a stand. Because the one advantage that you have and that I have, people in this room have, is that we have the value of a good education. We have the values that can come from a good education and can take the way we think differently out into the world and make the world a better place for those people who don't have the same advantages we have. And it's important that we find a way to maximise that. So I'm really pleased to see that the cross-disciplinary tournament has grown each year from a relatively small beginning. I think that that probably does reflect the fact that my former colleagues now, and some of them have also formed, but some of the colleagues that are heading up to the universities represented and Cambridge, yeah, that's right. Sorry, we visited Oxford and Cambridge in that visit that I was referring to, which I sort of indicated we didn't, but we did. So it's one of the IR. We talked about these things and how we made sure that we provided what we needed to provide for at least a selection of our students. So the number of programs has grown, this particular one has grown. I think that it has grown is a reflection both on you who are here this time, as well as those from the various universities who have come before. And I hope that it goes on to bigger and better things, because as I've said a couple of times already, there is no question that the only way in which the world will be able to adapt, and humanity, living things on our planet, will be able to adapt is when we work across our national boundaries to solve problems of immense challenge to us. The cross-disciplinary aspect is very important. When I was a young scientist and growing up and trying to find my way, most of the disciplines that we thought of were like little silos. We had, the physicists always knew everything about how to solve every problem on the planet. The medicos thought they could, everybody thought they could, but the reality was, until we started to talk to each other, we didn't even really fully understand the dimension of the problem. And it was by hearing what people from other disciplines said, hearing about how they were approaching it, getting access to the data that they were generating, that you began actually to do two things. One, understand the scope of the issues that we tried to deal with, and the other was how, by working with other people, you could get insights, not just insights, but actual practical activity that could help you and take you to solutions that might be much better as a consequence of that collaboration. But historically, collaboration is not easy. Historically, collaboration has been very difficult because the disciplines have sort of essentially become their silos. They've stayed within them for as long as we can go back and read in history. Breaking down those walls and making the walls at least very porous without diminishing the strength of the discipline. There is no point in us pretending that we can't do without first-rate physics in this world simply because physics works for a chemist and a geneticist and something else to worry about how the rainfall patterns are affecting the plants that can grow in parts of Australia. The physics has got to be good, the genetics has got to be good, the biochemistry's got to be good, the geology's got to be good, and when you put them all together, you get more than the sum of the parts. And that's what's really important about it. Building off the bricks that are the disciplines and making the wall ever stronger because together they're stronger than anyone would be on its own. So it's worth working for collaboration. It's worth pushing for collaboration. It's worth learning your discipline, mathematics, statistics, physics, chemistry, biology, whatever it is, at the deepest level that you can. But it's also worth bearing in mind always that you can learn from other disciplines too and put them together. So welcome to this tournament. I'm pleased to see you all here. I'm pleased to see that it has grown and is getting a lot more traction over time. That's the way these things happen. I hope you've enjoyed your time in Australia. I hope you enjoyed what time you've got left in Australia, especially those who are Australian, but also those who are visiting. I hope that you have a great time. You meet a lot of people, you made new friends, and those friends will endure way beyond the time of just coming together here. And when we do that, then the world will be a better place because of what you do. Thank you.
Okay, we now have a short opportunity to ask Professor Sharp any questions that you may have.
I'm not as ferocious as I look. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to go Alex first and then Zach.
We as students are obviously massively supporters of the biography and all the programs that we're on, but do you think there's anything that we can do to make it a bigger thing and start going into student bodies and within our own environments, our own universities?
Oh, well, I think that the best advertising is by word of mouth. So I think getting into your student bodies and making sure that they understand A, that the opportunities are available, and B, that they're very worthwhile when you do. I think the other thing, and this may be now a dated comment that I'm about to make, but one of the things that I would say when we first got together was that some universities were more interested in financial support for their students to attend these things than some other universities. And it does seem to me, and we had these discussions many times in those days, but it does seem to me that it's important for you to get to your senior people in your universities to say, well, this is a very worthwhile thing, but in a way, a modern education system should not do without. So it therefore becomes a so I think the first one is the word of mouth and your fellow students, and the second one is to make sure that the university hierarchy knows how worthwhile it is and how useful it is for developing the breadth of the education process they've got available.
Sam, any other questions?
I've heard a number of universities and a number of colleges within each university often talk about it being very hard for students to make the adjustment between undergraduate work and postgraduate work, especially in trying to get into the habit of publications and also just the different way of thinking required for research. In what ways is the IRO trying to ease that transition? Because I imagine something must have come up.
Yeah, well, it has. And so again, I've not been involved for 3 years now, but and so I don't know if this thinking still prevails, but what we were doing at that time was to try to expose undergraduates in particular. So when a person had already made a decision to be a graduate student and do a PhD or whatever, we handled them in one way. When you've got a bunch of undergraduates who might be interested in doing that and interested in doing it somewhere within the group or in a project across a number of universities within the group and so on, then we spent quite a bit of time about how you encourage the thinking within the undergraduate mind, if I can put it that way, to what it might be like to be a graduate student, a research student. And so a lot of it was designed to try to expose undergraduates to research in their earlier stages. So we had here some interns come out undergraduate interns would come out for a semester or two, well usually one semester, but come out for a period of time and get involved in projects here within the university for credit back home in a number of instances. And oftentimes they were project-based, so it was sort of beginning to, there was less pressure because there was still part of an undergraduate degree, but it was beginning to say, well, this is what it's like if you want to go off and do a higher degree by research, or particularly PhD. So it was sort of trying to blur that boundary, because I think there are, at each step in the education process, there is a discontinuity, so from primary to secondary to tertiary, bachelor's to research degree, there's a sort of step function change that you have to make in terms of how you think about it and what you do. And it is important to flatten those out. There'll always be a rise, but to make it smoother. And that was part of what we were trying to do by bringing undergraduates in early project-based stuff, and long enough to be useful in that respect as well as useful in terms of what they learned.
Thank you very much. One more question.
There are a few inter-university degrees between NUS and ANU. Was there a discussion when you were involved with IRO of doing more of those sort of degrees between universities?
Yes, there were. So the ANU ones and NUS, and I don't know whether they're still the same, but they were, the one that had worked best at the time was one where the class was a joint cohort, so students from Singapore, students from ANU, and they spent time here and spent time there as a cohort. And that, the numbers were never huge, but the impact on the students who were involved was very good. We did discuss it, and part of the problem comes down to the different structures of degrees. And it's, I should add that it's hard enough within Australia. If you want to transfer from ANU to the University of Melbourne, you've got to go find a band and beat them up somewhere because, there's well, they didn't do it here, did they? Type of approach. So it was doubly difficult doing it across, so completely different structures and the boundaries that are in there. So I don't know if there are any more now. We did talk about it, and we were sort of, when I left, we were getting to the point where we were saying, well, what proportion of the degrees that you would do at home in this area, and then how would you give crossover, and was that big enough then to sort of share a joint degree with a single just aim and a set of dangers on it, but one degree. So I don't know whether that's still a topic. Eric would know better than me, but those discussions were nearly done. still alive and they're not particularly.
Well, thank you very, very much for coming. Okay, so many of you know me. My name is Katie Cox. I'm the Vice Director of this tournament. I'm happy to have that honour this year. But last year, I was in a different position. I was sitting where the participants are now, waiting to present, listening to someone else waffle on. Except I was in Beijing at Peking University, and the topic was the future of the media. So I've been where they are now, and so I can tell you that the process that they have been through is incredibly intense, incredibly worthwhile, and I'm very, very proud of them for coming this far. We have some very exciting presentations coming up for you. I'll just run quickly through the topics. The first group we have up will be speaking to you about the ageing population worldwide and what we might be able to do about that. The second group is going to be addressing mental health through the setting of the workplace. Group 3 will be talking to you about academic doping. Number 4 is going to be talking to you about rehabilitation in jails and how we can redefine that paradigm for a new world. And finally, possibly our most future-oriented group, is going to be talking to you about 3D printed prosthetics and how they may be spread across the world to places in need. So without further ado, let me welcome up the first group.
Right, so good afternoon everyone. We're so glad to be here to present our great ideas to you guys. So today, as it has said, we'll be working on aging. So, to start off everything, here's a question to everyone. How many of you are not looking forward towards aging? Raise up your hands. Okay, there's actually quite a lot of people. But yeah, we tend to think that aging is a bad process and we don't want it, but our group actually wants to tell everyone here today that you should be looking forward towards aging because there's no better time than to age than right now. And why is that? That's because most of the world, both developing and developed countries, are actually facing this aging demographics. So for the first time in history, the market actually has to respond to the needs of old people. So you can see the stats up there. I think a lot of people have heard about this aging thing and people tend to say it's a problem. And we say it's a problem because there are social and economic problems to it. There's a smaller workforce, but you need to provide for more people who need more healthcare. So actually, a solution to this problem, which can be solved, is a sustainable healthcare system. But how do we go about building this sustainable healthcare system? And our group proposes that we should look at something called age gap. So we look at what aging people need. So this is from the, for those who cannot see at the back, it's from the Australian National Commission of Audits. And this is the expenditure for old people. So you see home care, which is 6%. You see home and community care, which is that greenish thing, 12%. And the largest one is from residential and flexible care. So our group was thinking about it, and we were thinking, if there was a way we could shrink the amount of money needed for residential and flexible care, and we grow the amount needed for home care and home and community care, perhaps there's a way we can shrink the total amount that we're diverting into elderly care. And so our group was thinking about it, and we're thinking really hard about it. So how can we increase this? And one way that we thought about it was to leverage on smart age technologies. There you go. So smart living technology. So it's the idea that technology can help supplement our daily lives so that it anticipates and responds to our needs. So you don't need a human care provider to be there with an elderly person 24/7 because that's really costs you a lot. Instead, you have technology to supplement that role. So this idea of smart living technology isn't actually very new, and there are actually markets for it. Oh yeah, here it is. So you have home technology for the aged, which some of you might know, and it covers things like preventive health, assistance, and emergency health. And then you have two emerging markets. You have smart house and Internet of Things. Smart house is the idea that your house can anticipate and react to your needs. So the two key players in this industry right now is smart things and NES. Smart things works with like sensors. NES works with like coordinating different objects together. And what has happened is that Internet of Things is the idea that objects that you own can communicate with each other through the internet. So what has happened is that Google has recently acquired NES and has plans to integrate NES technology with Android so that you can control home appliances with your smartphone. Problem is, we see the integration between smart house and Internet of Things, but we don't see them trying to etch into home tech for the edge. So we have this awesome technology for the house, but we don't have it within healthcare for old people edge. So we were hoping that if we could combine these two technologies together, we could possibly reduce the cost we need for elderly care. And this might seem very abstract and strange, so let me contextualize it. Actually, Suryan will contextualize it for you by showing you what we can do by merging all these technologies together. Suryan, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me introduce some technologies of wearable devices which can measure health indicators. For example, we have a healthcare wristwatch, which looks like just a common watch that can detect your health and then tell you about your health situation. Another good example is the Diet Dot. It's a very cute device, a small device, which is usually surface mounted on the skin, and it can give you some dietary recommendation by tracking your sweat. Yeah, and we can see all these technologies are able to play a very important role in elder people's prevent healthcare, especially preventive healthcare. So next page. Okay, so now let's see how the smart home and the Internet of Things work together. Basically, there are three procedures. First, the whole system should be triggered by an instruction, and this requires that it should be easily controlled by elder people, and all it is triggered automatically, which means it's intelligent or it is aware what the elder people need or want. As the second step, all the data will centralize to a smart hub. A smart hub can process this information and then give instructions to the smart home. The smart home is adaptable to every condition and by means of, say, adjusting lamps, air conditioners, thermostats. Sure. So what we could do if we succeed in integrating these technologies I mentioned before, we can see this. This is an example of integrated technology that enable elder people to get help immediately after sleeping. When an elderly person falls, the accelerometer on her body will detect a signal of an abnormally large acceleration, and the movement detector, which is usually installed in the bathroom, will also recognize this emergency, and then the smart hub will inform the relevant persons, say ambulance, families, immediately. Yeah. So, so there is a potential for smart technologies to improve aged care, but industry players are not moving in this direction quickly enough.
Okay, so you'll notice from what we just heard that whilst there are a range of exciting technologies at the moment, they remain quite diverse and relatively vague because they're still in early stages of development. You can perceive a problem with integration there as well. We might question whether either this is untenable because the potential for smart technology is still quite unknown, or whether, on the other things have already reached a point where they can catalyse themselves. We don't believe this is the case, and we think so because we perceive an informational problem in the market. The perfect market, well, the free market system which we rely on is predicated on many assumptions, such as that both consumers and producers have perfect information. You know what's available, you know what needs it will serve, you even know how well it will work. This is a very unrealistic assumption. So in economics and political science, we prefer to think about perfect market competition given the informational constraints. People act rationally according to what they know, which is far more reasonable. Obviously, this assumption of perfect information is never satisfied, and so we don't have a perfect market. And this is particularly the case when we're looking at markets for new technologies, such as the smart housing and Internet of Things technologies we describe, partly because they require integration to form a meaningful product that can suit people's needs, and partly because whilst people, particularly elderly people, are aware of the many challenges they face in life, you know, oh, I've slipped and fallen in the bathroom, help. They don't know what sorts of products might help them in the future to avoid the same problems. So we believe that we need to solve this information problem to move the market for aged care, using these market for aged care technologies, towards a more sustainable solution. And by informing elderly people and others in the market, others who might create demand in this market, say those who are already physically challenged in other ways, whatever age they might be, of the potential for these technologies, we can create demand for them even if the products themselves are as yet in a conceptual stage, which in turn will incentivise businesses to begin further development and invest money into their development. We'd like to point out as well that this isn't the first time the market has failed to deal effectively with new technologies, or at least fast enough to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. The smart house technology we describe has also been applied in the different context of energy saving. So, for instance, the Australian government has implemented extensive programs to encourage the use of solar panels and water-saving showers, and this will be very well known to all of you who live in Australia because it's changed many aspects of our lives. However, originally the market was struggling to develop these technologies itself, and they weren't actually at a point where they could be useful to individuals. Moreover, consumers weren't demanding them because they weren't aware of their existence or didn't believe they could be useful, so the problem became self-perpetuating. We believe that if, as in that case, we can convince government and industry professionals to support the development of these technologies and expand knowledge amongst target demographics, we'll be able to catalyse their development.
Let's stick the microphone. Fantastic. So in light of the issues Annika has raised, and accepting the premise that the market is unlikely to integrate these technologies with sufficient rapidity to meet the needs of the changing demographics, we propose that the market effectively needs a kick in the butt. We need to catalyse the situation. And how might we do that, you might ask? So we know that market imperfections cause development lags, and we know that the situation is urgent. So we've decided that it's imperative that we expedite the development of smart technologies to improve health outcomes, extend the independence of the elderly, and allow the elderly people to live with greater dignity and for longer without reliance on others. Now, the catalyst we propose is the incubator program. Now, this is a way in which we can get regular market forces to operate with greater efficiency to a more focused end and to achieve better outcomes in a shorter time frame. Now, the basic jig effectively is that we're creating a feedback loop within which the market can start to realise the value of this technology. Now, we start with a design brief. That design brief allows an interested party who may be interested in participating in such a scheme, such as the government, a likely contender we put forward is the Department of Health. And they might identify some health outcomes that are very pertinent within the immediate period. Those might include some of the notions of independence that we mentioned. Now, we take that design brief to an annual development workshop where we invite designers, engineers, and other multidisciplinary thinkers to come together and think on the lines of the group. Now, conceptual designs in which ways we might package and design technology in a more efficient form. But that doesn't go beyond what is already offered. Design concepts are nothing new, and you might think, are we simply just adding another drop to the pond? But this is where the feedback cycle becomes of great value. We move from our annual development workshop to a physical centre and showroom. The link between here is where we add value to the system, however, because from the annual workshop, we can now fund the ideas that are being conceptualised within this phase through annual grants, commercial pickups, etc. from these conferences. And they'll actually be funded into reality where they'll be placed into physical spaces and showrooms. Now, the notion of the physical showroom is itself a way of gathering attention to the possibilities of this technology and addressing the informational and demand deficit that Annika recently just spoke about. Now, once these technologies have been funded and put into a physical centre, which Yuzuha will elaborate on in just a moment, they can be funded into a residential trial phase. But moreover, their greatest value is that they get societal awareness and media attention. And in turn, that causes positive feedback because it lets producers and suppliers in these industries know that these are products that people are both willing and able to pay for. So we raise societal awareness, we increase media attention, and we reduce the asymmetric informational problem by allowing this cycle to run over multiple periods. Now, our development workshop has low fees. It's accessible. It doesn't crowd out small players. It allows innovation to breathe simply on the basis of that innovation. It's open to multiple professions and it's interdisciplinary. Okay, that's a technical pitch. Now, Yuzuha will expand on the physical stand.
So let me explain on the physical center, which is the H-Tech showroom. This is a place where elderly can actually experience the technology available. Please think about the kind of IKEA showroom that can be in a lifelike environment. But I think you may wonder, how is it different from the existing Tech Expo? And for example, there was a Smart Aging Fair in Nagoya, Japan. It was 2 days expo in a convention center, but the problem lies that this is only 2 days, and it is only convention center. So the number of elderly people come to this expo in a convention center in particular day will be pretty limited. So what we thought was that what would be the place where elderly people would visit on a regular basis? Hospitals. So we decided to design the showroom inside the hospitals so that elderly people can visit in waiting time, and also doctors can advise their technology that will be useful for the patients. In the showroom, there will be technology available such as Sui-Wen has already presented, preventive health, emergency health, and also allows them to remain in workforce, working out inside the home. In this showroom, not only just one way receiving information from the developer side, they can also give a feedback, and also through a catalogue of potential technology that were made in the workshop phase. So how can we exactly accelerate the spread of technology from the lab development into the daily usage of the elderly life? There's a huge gap right now. One thing is the feedback as a database. Because we raise the accessibility of elderly people, the amount of data would be really attractive to the various stakeholders. For example, the government can use this data to prioritize the technology, which technology should be subsidized, which is really useful for the elderly. Or developers can use it as a market research, so that they know the consumer needs more. Also, actual experience is pretty important because elderly now don't know about the existing technology because those technologies are introduced in tech magazines or the internet, and tech-savvy people knows the cool technology, but not many elderly are aware of this technology. But if they can actually experience in this hospital, then they can get the hand of the usefulness, and that will create demand. And that will create incentive for the cooperative investors that because there is a demand, there will be a market drive. And there will going to be a residential section, which not only showroom, but they can actually reside on and work with the technology. And the future of independent living is actually changing, and we are trying to, through this physical center and other whole concept of program, we consider independence not only just being able to move around physical capability, but with the help of technology. The elderly can do what they want without the constant assistance by human. Then Annika will explain about the outcome for this catalyst.
Thank you. Okay, Annika's slides appear to have got lost. So, we thought about the long-term prospects of this technology and why government or investors or indeed any of us would have an interest in implementing next technology and to achieve our objectives of improving the process of aging. So we propose that there are both economic and social benefits because we know that a simple economic argument is often enough to convince public health departments, but it can seem hideously hard-headed and make people feel, well, considering that consumer demand is going to drive much of this development, make people disinclined, which could throw the whole project under the train. So, economic. We thought that we could ameliorate the labour problem that's supposed to be developing as the population ages in two ways. Firstly, and most immediately, by reducing the number of people working in the labour-intensive sector of aged care, by replacing constant human monitoring with technology which also allows older people their dignity back. And secondly, over the long...
20 minutes, so I'll let you just say one concluding statement, and then we'll move on.
Okay, I'll pass over.
Okay, it seems like we're running out of time, so just to wrap up, our catalyst is done, so that we hope that we can make aging enjoyable for all of us here, both old and young. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much for paying attention to that.
We need to propose an international platform to help businesses better deal with the challenges of mental health in the workplace. An increasingly interconnected global society in the next 30 years will lead to unprecedented challenges and changing demands in the workforce. Businesses must place an emphasis on creating a positive work environment that will reduce stress, leading not only to better personal outcomes, but also better economic outcomes. This will open up new ways of doing business. Corporate social responsibility allows companies to realign the social interest with the business interest, by benefiting the broader community without affecting the bottom line. Our interdisciplinary and cross-cultural team is in a unique position to develop a platform to respond to the challenges of this more cosmopolitan future. We propose a web platform that takes a bottom-up approach to changing business culture for the better. We've applied ideas from various academic fields that have contributed to the evidence-based framework for this website. There are a number of similar websites trying to help reduce the impact of depression and anxiety around the world. However, we feel that our website tackles the issue from a novel direction, which will bring its own unique advantages. Unfortunately, it will also face a number of challenges, both legal and practical.
So I'll just run through how we approach this issue. So since we are talking about mental illness, it's a very complicated issue with social and psychological elements. We decided to tackle it from a different perspective. We decided to take on a general system theory approach. This basically is to look at the issue or entity as a large system with multiple small components that are interrelated. So in our case, we are looking at an organization, so that would be the system, and the small subsystems or components would be the employees, the business partners, and the stakeholders. And in our case, we are, for our project, we are targeting the employee subsystem. But we also realized that just by improving the subsystem isn't going to help optimize the full system. We need certain conditions in place. And we identified three main conditions. So the first would be the culture system. We need a good culture, and this is related to the attitudes and behavior of the people in the system. The second would be communication system. This is the communication between the employer, employee, and the public. And finally, the learning system. Learning system is how the company learns from its mistakes and is able to adapt to the changes that it's going through over time. With this framework, we came up with our Catalyst for Change, which is the web platform that Jed mentioned. Now I'll just give you a run-through of how our website is going to look like and how it's going to work. Alright, so this is a simple mock-up of the website that we did. I can put the link below. So how the website is going to work is there will be an open section and a closed section. So the open section will be on a public domain, it will be viewable by the public. So what it's going to contain is basic background information on mental illness. So it will show the importance of the work environment, how the work environment affects your mental state and the stress levels. It will also contain demographics on work-related mental illness and links to other websites and sources of mental illness. The reason for this is because our website isn't targeted at those who are already suffering from mental illness, but rather targeted at companies to help improve work environment and prevent future employees from getting mental illness. So apart from this, there will also be description of companies, as you can see, of corporations involved in this initiative. It will have description of initiatives by these corporations on what they are doing in their companies. And finally, there will also be tab or information on how corporations can get involved in our initiative.
We hope that this will be an incentive for corporations to take on this project to better their own work environments. Also, there will be a closed section of the website where the companies who have already signed up will be able to exchange information and discuss possible initiatives with other companies who are involved, as well as any researchers who may get interested in the project. Some of the things the closed section will include are checklists for acceptable work environments, a symptoms checklist for screening basic symptoms of mental illnesses. It won't be diagnostic tools, just something so people are more aware of these issues in the workplace. We'll also have online stress intervention tools, for example, online mindfulness training that have been proved to be very effective. Secondly, there will be a feedback system for employees, and this is part of the communication and learning system that we described earlier. The feedback system will have checklists for employees to pick off what their businesses are doing well, as well as Likert scales so we can quantify their feedback better, and a feedback form for more qualitative responses.
And we also would like to have 3 discussion forums in our website, which is a forum between the company and the employees, the forum between the companies, and the forum between the companies and the public. We think that the most important of these 3 is the forum between the company and the public, because it will enable informal communication between the company and the public, and will lead to discussion of the solutions to complicated problems in the public field and the business field.
Furthermore, since we have so many resources available, we will also be generating large masses of data. Some of this will be quantitative and quite easy to manage from a data and computer science view, but the qualitative data will be rather difficult to manage. So we proposed a machine learning perspective to develop tools for one, classifying all the posts in the various forums into different categories to make them accessible, and 2, look at connotations in words using theories from psychology about connotations in words to do mass linguistic analysis. And these are just some of the examples we thought of using mass data masses. Alright, so we move on to corporate social responsibility, which we think is a part of the framework for our program. So the thing is, public corporate social responsibility has often been associated with philanthropy, but there's also the important aspect of conducting business in a responsible way, which is what we are addressing here. So we want businesses to transform the way they're doing things, and how do we get them to do that? They might be skeptical that the investment isn't going to return. However, we found a report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is an established consulting firm in Australia, that says that the return on investment for every dollar invested in mental health is actually $2.3, which is a quite large investment, and that's for a single investment. It's reasonable to believe that this return will increase as we do multiple initiatives, since that's how the psychology of the states.
this corporate social responsibility, we have heard of it many times that big companies are doing a lot of different initiatives. But when we look at small medium enterprises, it might not be the case because they do not have that big budgets, they do not have that much resources, so they might not be able to embark on crazy initiatives that help the society. And there's a common misconception that we have that they cannot be part of corporate social responsibility. What we believe is that it doesn't have to be on a large-scale basis. It can be as simple as just improving your work environment to help the employees have a better work experience and hence reduce mental illness.
Looking at the impact of CSR, CSR initially cannot please all of the companies at all of the time, but it can please some of the companies some of the time. And we have some research conducted on the consumers to provide some support for our policies. The research said the CSR may have influence on the consumers' trust to the company, and the trust will in turn influence the consumers' consequence actions. And for SMEs, they have the key to hold the sustainability, sustainability to do their work. But they still have they still don't have enough embedded in things to the society, to their society capital. And on the other hand, for the large companies, the large companies, they have the relation with the stakeholders, but they still lack the ability to put these liability, to put these management of the specific relations into their corporation strategy.
So, I will have to talk a little bit about the medical background of depression. So, stress has been quite powerfully connected with depression, and we're not going to get deeply into that for now because it's a well-established fact and beyond the scope of our presentation. However, I will get into the epidemiology of stress and depression and the cost of mental illness on a worldwide level. So we know that depression is highly prevalent across all nations in the world, more so in developed nations and undeveloped nations, but still prevalent in undeveloped nations. And we also know that the amount of diagnosis is increasing over time. In fact, a report from the WHO says that 12% of the disability years lived in the world, so years with disability, come from mental illnesses. That's quite amazing. Furthermore, the cost of mental illnesses are staggering. In the European Union, the estimates are that the cost of mental illness is, and that's specifically mood disorder, so that's depression, bipolar disorder, and anxiety, amounts to 113 billion euros per year. In Australia, the amount is $11 billion per year. In Britain, it's 100 billion pounds per year, and in Canada, it's $50 billion per year. So the costs are quite high, and the society has a clear interest in addressing these issues. So one question we have to address is, if we want to create an international platform, are our proposed solutions relevant to all societies? Of course, there will be differences, but however, we found a study that had compared work environment in Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and the United States, looking at specifically nurses' work environment. But we think this finding that even though there are some differences between how people become stressed and handle their stress, the main tendencies are the same. The things that cause people severe stress is the lack of control over their workload.
So evolutionary psychologists have proposed a number of causes for depression, or reasons to develop it as a species. Two of these are particularly interesting to what we're discussing today, which are signaling, yielding, and hierarchy conflicts, and fostering disengagements to commitments to unreachable goals. They're very technical side terms. However, we feel that though the evolutionary psychologists argue that these are productive developed traits that help us address challenges in our daily lives, in a modern context we can show that they're quite inefficient and unpleasant for individuals. It's particularly pertinent to remember that though these were developed as coping mechanisms they can be seen to work in reverse in modern society and being burdened with unassailable hierarchies or unreachable goals does in fact cause depression. On a biological basis, we need to consider the genetic trends in anxiety and mood disorders, particularly in the serotonin system. There are genetic factors that affect people with mood disorders that can be seen to be in effect across cultures. BDNF is a neurotransmitter that affects adaptability and stress in everyone. Particularly in the workforce, we need to manage stress in a number of ways. The major factors that the literature has proposed need to be changed are managing bullying, discrimination, managing workloads efficiently so people know how much they need to do and when, and preventing a feeling of hopelessness or a lack of direction. Businesses would also do well to reduce the stigma surrounding mental illnesses and develop a culture that encourages communication. Studies have shown that small to medium enterprises in particular have workers facing higher stresses, and that a participatory approach, where workers are able to communicate with their employers about how they're struggling, has been effective to resolve these issues.
So we would also like to address effective intervention towards mental illness issues. Researchers have shown that personal, organizational, and work environment-based interventions are all effective in reducing stress. Traditionally, individual approach has been used towards stress of the workers, but it was proven to be rather ineffective because many employees have only a small control over the stressors that exist in their work environment. So recently, organizational approach are more in favor and are supporting gaining more support. And so we wish that from the information that is gathered in with platform, better methodologies of interventions will be developed and help the workers who are suffering from depression.
Right, next we are looking at benefits. What are benefits we see from our website? The first will be information sharing. The ability for companies to share information and collaborate the different initiatives they have. This will help more companies improve whatever they have or introduce new ideas. The next is accountability and corporate image. The transparent nature of our website promotes accountability, and this in turn would improve the corporate image of the company and make it more desirable for new employees to enter that company.
We also think that this web platform will help improve multicultural work environments. It has become common that people from various cultures and nationalities gather and work in the same place. But although such cultural exchanges can bring a lot of benefits, it can also cause a lot of stress upon people from minority backgrounds because of things like barriers in communications or different business principles. Research done in the US showed that people from different cultures respond to mental illness differently. For example, Chinese people are more likely to report on somatic symptoms such as pain in their body rather than symptoms relating to their mood or motivations. Failure to understand such cultural differences and complexities of mental illness can lead to further stress on the workers. So we wish that by sharing and accumulating information in this platform, the companies will learn how to improve multicultural work environments.
We think it's important to note that it's not just the companies that could benefit this. The data collected by this website would be incredibly valuable for future academic research.
Okay, sure. The platform may provide the employees and employers both a chance to improve their working environment, but at the same time, the platform may have some challenges at all. So today, I really want to talk about the legal risks about this platform. There are 4 parts of it. The first part is the Balance Act. The render of the website should strike a balance between the security protection and the information publication, and strike a balance between the freedom of speech and the defamation. Yeah, in general, employees is obliged to hold their company's secret and And the second one is for the data is protected effectively for fair commercial use. So the render of the website should try to meet their requirement. And the second is the user's privacy protection. Neither both in the international law and the domestic law, the user's privacy information is required to be protected effectively, and unless it is required by the government or the court. And the third legal issue is the protection of the platform itself. The ISP, International Service Provider, may be the subject of the internet definition, and the legal responsibility of it is more than heavy if it is required to take all of the internet definition. So maybe we could use in the IPR field, there is a safe harbor principle to shield the ISP from being legal responsibility. So maybe we should take this principle, apply it in the definition field, and to protect the ISP. And the first one is the transnational corporations may face a lot of international private legal issues such as jurisdiction, applicable law, and that.
Alright. So we're running out of time, so I'll conclude now. In summary, we think that the benefits of our website on 3 levels: the individual level, the business level, and the society level. The benefits for the individual will be direct in terms of quality of life. The benefit in terms of businesses is they'll have less sick leave and thus better financial performance. And the social benefit is a reduction in the cost of the mental health system. Furthermore, we are placing ourselves in the debate or the tendency that private interest and public interest should look at places where they have common ground in order to look where they can work together to a greater good. Now, one of the main challenges of our website is gaining critical mass, because it will only become useful once it reaches a high level of information. So we propose collaborating with international university environment or large multinational corporations who already have the framework available to do so.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter and I'll be introducing the presentation. Today I'd like to begin by telling you a story about a university student named Richard. He was in the process of getting into medical school in 2009. He just graduated with honours from Greensboro College in North Carolina, and he's a graduate being class president and loves playing sports. He was the kind of guy we aspired to be. He had exciting prospects just around the corner. His dreams were within his grasp. To maintain focus during studying, he began to take Adderall. This is a drug typically prescribed to people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but has now been taken by students such as Richard to improve their motivation for studying. He quickly became addicted and began to seek high doses by pretending to have ADHD dispositions. This pattern continued until he developed psychosis. Sadly, interest remained equally suicide. This is the classic case of how some of our top students can feel compelled under a stressful workload to seek out cognitive enhancing drugs. This story of a student taking a prescription drug as a cognitive enhancement is not unusual. For a 2013 study by Jason Mazanoff finding that 13.8% of students surveyed in Australia took drugs similar to Richard. As the drug in question is not intended for those not suffering specific cognitive conditions, this is still worrying development. We'd like to start a conversation on why this culture of pill popping has emerged on our university campuses. As part of raising the profile of this issue, we will also want to encourage greater engagement and research by the academic community. Our campus is a two-pronged approach, centered around providing information and awareness to university students. This campaign will be delivered for a smartphone application, which will provide users with information about their health. This health tracking application will be part of a wider campaign about raising awareness of cognitive enhancing drugs and their effect on people. Now, many of these drugs have chemical structures that are similar to specific brain neurotransmitters such as dopamine. By stimulating the central nervous system, drugs such as Ritalin help patients suffering from various cognitive conditions to properly control their sleep and concentration. When used by people not suffering those disorders, they can boost memory function and reduce the amount of sleep required, but to an unnatural level. The National Institute of Drug Abuse warned in 2013 that these very drugs could produce various negative side effects, such as increased blood pressure and result in anxiety conditions. But made clear that when used in someone who is not suffering from cognitive conditions, the effects may be unknown. Users can also build up a tolerance to these drugs, and some students have even begun to experiment with antidepressants as downers, so that they are not always under the influence of these study drugs. Studies have been performed both by academics and in the media, researching the prevalence of this culture. A survey of 1,000 students at Cambridge University found that 10% admitted to taking medication to enhance their work performance. It's by clearly breaching the law. This pattern is mirrored in the United States, where a study by McCabe in 2003 found that out of 11,000 college students, 6.9% would take non-medical prescriptions. This is the exact same method that Richard Field used to get hold of Adderall. And motivations for why these students take cognitive enhancing drugs has become visible by academics such as Rico, writing in 2013, accounts of why these students took these drugs. One student, Sarah, told how she would take Adderall to feel up, saying, "When I'm walking into the library, if I haven't had Adderall, there's no way I'll get anything done." As you can see from here, it was a crucial part of her work at university, just to get through a typical day. I shall now hand over to Pat.
Thank you, Peter. And then, what are the implications of academic doping culture when it comes to the future of the body? The use of cognitive enhancement drug points to a worrying trend of ever-increasing standards of the norm in society. By norm, we mean that the standards to which human beings are supposed to conform with regard to their body conditions, and which regulates our social behaviors. Considering the historical context, it was not until the 19th century and the advent of modern medicine and public health that the need to be healthy or normal condition, truly emerged. People were required to maintain their health and normal condition to assure the productivity in modern society, which is based on the competition and efficiency of the capitalistic economic system. However, the culture of academic doping to artificially enhance one's cognitive abilities signals yet another change in social norms. As Catherine Company and John Abraham shows, from the medical sociology perspective, beyond the therapeutic purpose to cure illnesses, the new use of enhancing the body functions for higher competence and productivity has been prevailing. People are increasingly forced to optimize and maximize the body functions. Instead of just being healthy, we now must be more than healthy to be enhanced. As we mentioned earlier, the side effects of such drugs has not been fully revealed. As Alan Buchanan suggests in the education field, in virtue of increasing productivity of the social system, such drugs might be able to lead to a positive future. However, at the very least, as long as there is a potential danger, the current situation in which people are dependent on such drug intake only for the sake of boosting their body conditions without any awareness toward their bodies cannot possibly be desirable. Norm itself is not a bad thing. It is at the same time the reflection of the people's ideas and ways of thinking toward society. So our future is prescribed by the norm, but at the same time it also depends on our awareness of how we are and how the society is. So we are looking at the catalyzing change in different groups of society in order to change society and instigate an effective change in the future of academic doping and, by extension, the future of the body. So, Navigator is going to explain the concrete strategy of our for change.
Hi, thank you, Atsu. So, as he sort of mentioned earlier, we decided from the very start that we don't want to have a catalyst that would try to eradicate the practice of academic doping. Because firstly, we don't know too much about it. We know that there are some people who do it, but we don't know the full extent of usage in a lot of countries. Some studies have been done in Western countries like America, the UK, and Australia, but there's little or no evidence to suggest, to indicate the prevalence of such practices in other Asian cultures or other countries around the world. Secondly, we also know little about the social and cultural factors beyond the psychology. Why do these people feel the need to be driven to take these kinds of drugs to do well at school? Secondly, we identified that the real issue here is not just about academic doping. It is about the future of cognitive enhancement. In the future, cognitive enhancement could be done by, for example, implanting a chip into your brain or something like that. For example, there's this biomedical engineer called Theodore Berger in the University of South Carolina who has been experimenting with memory implants, which could help people suffering from Alzheimer's disease. But what happens when normal people also make use of such implants? First, we conceive that our catalyst must address the problem of starting a conversation about the use of cognitive enhancement in current society. We want to foster awareness among society and amongst university students and a culture of openness where people can sort of talk about it and everything. The first target group in society is society in general. There are media reports that do surface now and then about academic doping, and it is generally known among university students that such practices do occur, but people seem to adopt a very casual or apathetic attitude towards it. In addition, some people may also be unaware of the severity and importance of the problem, and therefore no extended and meaningful dialogue has ever been broached on this topic. Therefore, our objective with regards to the society will be to generate awareness and get a conversation going about this very important topic. The second target group will be university students. We want to foster more in-depth reflection into their habits when it comes to studying or when it comes to using stimulant drugs. And we also want to make sure that they are able to make responsible, informed decisions when taking such substances. And instead of taking the conventional anti-drug campaign route where we tell them that no, please don't take these drugs because they are bad for you, we want to take a different approach because a lot of these students who do decide to take stimulant drugs have weighed the bad consequences and the possible good effects of success in their academic careers, and they decided that they are using this drug as a tool to try and help them achieve those objectives. And so we want to respect that, and we want to tell them that, hey, this is the information that you need to make the right decisions for yourself. The third group is the academic community. In the course of us researching this topic, we realized that there was very limited research done on academic doping. Firstly, the full extent of the long-term side effects of such drugs is uncertain, especially with extended use. Secondly, an anthropological or sociological approach to the culture of academic doping is sorely lacking. Therefore, our overall objective here would be to initiate more academic research on the attitudes regarding academic doping and its effects, and possibly more cross-cultural comparisons, because so far most of the research has been focused on Western societies. In line with this strategy, we have conceived of a catalyst which is primarily two-pronged. The first part will be an awareness campaign about academic doping that will hopefully start the conversation going and initiate more research. The second part is a smartphone application, which is a health tracker that collects anonymized data for research and provides information for users. Next up, Caitlin will be telling you more about our catalyst.
you. So, as previously said, our campaign is split into two separate portions. So we've got the campaign, and then we've got the app, and then we're quite separate. The campaign itself has several different goals in mind. So that'll be aiming to create a public aspect of the conversation to make sure that the general public, including academics, know what's going on. They have an informed opinion about academic doping, and also we will be focusing on the students. So we'll be encouraging the students to install our app to track their own health decisions and to see what's going wrong and what's going right in their lives. And we'll also provide them with information about what choices they can make. So our campaign has several different goals. It really needs to be different to existing campaigns around drug use and drug abuse, as these are usually about scaring people into not using them. Of course, a lot of the academic doping drugs that are available are illegal, because if you don't have a prescription for it, it's usually illegal to obtain them. So for focusing on the general public, we propose a viral campaign, communicating the negative and the positive outcomes of using academic doping, inviting conversation and increased awareness. This will be entirely different from the scare campaign style that is usually used, so it will be quite controversial and should generate quite a lot of coverage. Maybe, possibly, a campaign around the idea of, what if I'd taken study drugs to help me pass that course 20 years ago when I was still in university? You would have the outcomes of, possibly I would be dead because I would be addicted to it. Or you could have the outcomes of, possibly I would have got that job 3 years ago that wanted that course. So we'll explore the negative and the positive effects. So for focusing on the students, we'll also have a guerrilla advertising campaign on campus, using interactive elements on and around campus. We will have large hill-shaped capsules around campuses that contain challenges based on increasing self-awareness of health and habits with using the app, with rewards from local businesses, business partners upon completion. For example, we've got one that says, hey, you should give up coffee for a week. Document how you're feeling on the ClearMind app for at least 3 times in that week, and at the end of the week you'll get a free drink with our business partner Boost Juices. We'll also have conversation starters in places where people spend time with their friends studying. For example, you could have one that says, did you know that there are very few reliable long-term reports on the effect of continued use of unprescribed cognitive enhancement drugs, which would start a really interesting conversation between 2 friends and might instigate them to look up further information. These will all have links to the app or the website on the opposite side from the text. So next is Brian here to talk to you about some of the goals of our app.
Thanks, Wayne. Actually, it is a cool idea for us to design a health app for campus students. Campus students can refer to this app to upload their body condition as well as their academic doping circumstances. Also, they can measure their overall well-being by taking some interesting cognitive tests. Generally speaking, it is kind of the starting point of our research and our catalysts, which means we believe it can help us prepare for the future change. So why do we need an app for our catalyst? The major concern here is that up to now, related research about this problem is really far from being sufficient, which results in the ignorance from both students and university scale. So in order to obtain accurate, successive, and up-to-date data, our group comes up with this cool idea of app. Generally speaking, there are 3 merits for this app. Firstly, the advent of smartphone has caused profound restructuring of the social structure and the ways people interact with the rest of the world. So, what happens is that, for example, if you use iPhone, you can log in the App Store to download whatever app you want. So by releasing our app, we can actually make the users easier access to our app, and we can have easy access and efficient access to original and reliable data. Secondly, internet-based data connection, it makes a huge difference. Actually, compared to the traditional data connection process, our anonymous and ethical data collection and analysis method is more user-friendly and can attract more people to use it. Thirdly, we figure out that university students are always keen on cool things, so we are confident that our app will attract more and more students to use it to participate in this program, which we believe that will be beneficial for students themselves and for this research. So that raises another problem. What are the goals of our app? Please look at this picture. I would like to describe it from three aspects: uploading, downloading, and loyalty. For uploading part, we must connect some anonymous and concrete data from users for academic research, which is the original and basic purpose for to design this app. And for downloading part, we can provide some information for the users to encourage independent decision making, which means they can say, okay, I will get rid of academic doping because that's good for my health, because the biological and chemical properties of the drugs I take is dangerous. Yeah. And for loyalty, we must find some ways to keep the users' loyalty and attention for our app and help them stick to our app. By doing so, we can create a connection between the users of our app and our database. So, appropriate designing for our app is really crucial for us to fulfill our task for this catalyst. And Caitlin will introduce the primary elements of our app in order to help us understand why and how it works.
Hello, so we don't have a lot of time left, so I'll just show you a couple of mock-ups that we have right now. We have up here on the left the sign-up sheet, so you'll have to verify that you are in fact a university student, but this will not be stored next to any of your information to ensure anonymity. So we also have some information services that we provided about local health and intervention things that you can look at. So hopefully after today you'll be invited to consider your own habits and the futures that are possible within a world where you can choose whether or not to enhance your abilities to stay afloat in the rising tide of human potential. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, this is McConaughey from the Futures Foundation. I'm Fletch. This is Alex, Liu, and Tourament. And we're very pleased you've taken the time here today to listen to our pitch. So we've been working really hard on trying to develop a catalyst for change, which is going to target some of the problems we see rising out of the future of work. And we greatly appreciate your organisation's support in helping us tackle this. So if I can begin. Our catalyst for change consists of a shift in how we sentence criminals. So we're trying to change from looking at a set period of physical containment to a set level, or graduating from a required level of mental rehabilitation. So we believe this catalyst reflects the diminishing role of the physical body in our modern world. So in our understanding of ourselves, how we interact with our environment, and how we increasingly interact with each other in the next 30 years. As such, penal systems which rely solely on physical containment will be problematic for two reasons. Firstly, they target an increasingly less relevant aspect of the body, that being the physical body. So when prisoners come to re-enter society, they're still highly likely to commit crime. Secondly, physical containment causes inmates to become disjointed from society. They lose the rhythm of maintaining regular employment, they lose their social networks, and often they come to normalise a criminal environment. These are factors which make it harder for former prisoners to reintegrate into society and often encourage us to turn to crime. Our Catalyst for Change will give rise to a program that allows inmates to earn reductions in their physical containment by participating in and graduating from courses in mental rehabilitation.
Okay, hold on. So can I just see if I'm following you right? So your Catalyst for Change is essentially a reconceptualization of the prison. But why prisons in the first place?
Well, this is because we're trying to tackle the problem of recidivism. So it's actually probably one of the biggest problems faced by prisons today, and also partially a product of their systems. In the UK, for example, there's between 50 and 70% reoffence rate, and even in Australia, 60% of offenders are in fact reoffenders. So there are 4 key ways that most prisons work nowadays. They focus on retribution, incapacitation, deterrence, and only finally rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, though, is the only one of the 4 which really gets us to the heart of why criminals commit the crimes to begin with and help them to rehabilitate. So, in spite of this, most punitive systems seem to forsake utilitarian objectives and instead focus on purely ideological punitive measures, punishment for its own sake, because, hey, it's deserved. But studies have shown that rehabilitation can improve recidivism rates by up to 80%, which is, in the grand scale of things, much more effective.
Okay, but what does this have to do with the future of the body? Can you get it better?
So, for rehabilitation to function well, it really needs to embrace the somatic significance of human being within his social environment. Now, for this to happen, the future of the body in its increasingly physical state needs to embrace the mental focus of the future. So a new kind of dualism has been built out of modern life in which mind and body are, in a very real sense, on a day-to-day basis, having a very different interaction with the world. So, for example, think about it on a daily basis. How much time do you spend exercising your mind as opposed to your body? Now, our catalyst is focused on this central element. In order to make the most of this mentally focused world, though, it goes beyond just embracing the opportunities of a society which offers such opportunities. Rather, it's more essentially an opportunity to reaffirm your values within your connection to the world. So, the future of the body as we envision it is one in which the very possibility of social cohesion will be fundamentally underpinned by a need to embrace the connection between the mind, body, and the world. And hence, prison systems in turn need to move beyond just physically incapacitating prisoners, and instead embrace a more mentally rehabilitative state which can qualitatively add to how prisoners reassert their position in the world.
Okay, that's interesting. But okay, so I see you're trying to make prisons move away from physical containment to rehabilitation. So what do you have in mind then?
Well, as I indicated earlier, our catalyst for change is changing the way we sentence criminals. So we're moving from a set period of physical containment to a separate one with mentally rehabilitative courses. So we believe this dramatically alters the dynamic of the penal system and places the onus on inmates to demonstrate that they are ready to reintegrate into society. The benefits of this are twofold. Firstly, inmates are in control of their own detention. They hold the keys to their liberty, and the only thing standing between them and freedom is themselves. Secondly, society will be better protected as criminals will only be released back into society once they've undergone significant periods of education on the issues they face and demonstrated genuine intention to live a crime-free life. Our program involves a number of different courses that allow inmates to earn greater levels of physical freedom by completing more of these courses. The inmates themselves work to achieve the shift we wish to encourage.
Okay, so in a sense, your program is structured like that of a university, where inmates graduate from each level of the program, and they earn greater level of physical freedom. Right? So if that's the case, I imagine you can have core courses related to the crime that the inmates have committed, like substance abuse, anger management, and perhaps also electives, which can help inmates find employment and boost their life skills or even provide basic education.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So we have complete programs tailored to the rehabilitation of specific crimes with elective courses to kind of supplement this, as you put it. So inmates will also take part in weekly counselling sessions to help to work through any mental issues they might have and also monitor their continual progress through our courses. Once inmates graduate from each course, they'll be allowed greater physical freedom and also a greater level of reintegration into society. Each level will require a more demanding demonstration of mental rehabilitation, but correspondingly give greater physical freedom. The more serious the crime, obviously, the longer and more demanding this process of proving themselves will be. We believe this will slowly build into somewhat of a soft release back into society.
Okay, so I suppose that means they'll have a job and some money before being finally released back to society, and also connections with their friends and family.
Yeah, you got it right again. We believe our Colours for Change focuses on the positives of mental rehabilitation while simultaneously removing a lot of the problems associated with physical containment. Now let's look at some issues of implementation, because this is where the real challenges in our system are going to lie. We believe our colours to be very flexible and able to be applied to almost any country. In fact, we've prepared a pilot proposal, which Zia will now go through.
Okay, now I'm presenting our pilot proposal, which is in Norway.
Ah, Norway. I like the salmon.
Yes, in fact, Norway has almost the lowest recidivism rate in the world at about 20%. In Norway, prison is not considered as an isolated institution, but a part of a community. So the more we graduate the transformation from imprisonment to freedom, the more we have the chance to prevent reoffending. Basically, the current Norwegian penal system has a framework which is built around the principles we like to introduce today.
But what exactly do you mean by prisons being part of the community? Do you mean that in Norway, prisons are just like the outside world?
You know, as we know nowadays, in most of the countries, the penal systems there, they kind of restrain the inmate's physical body, but they ignore their rebuilding of their self-identity and also their social connections with their family and friends and other social organizations. However, the Norwegian correctional facility generally tend to attend a normality that tries to mirror the outside world as much as possible. The most important thing is that they would like to think that one is sentenced only to limit their freedom to the movement. Inmates will proceed towards their release gradually from the high secure prisons to lower secure prisons and probably through halfway houses. The penal system helps inmates better reintegrate into the society outside and then avoid recidivism, and also rather than letting them to just go to a different world outside. Life inside should be resemble the life outside, which we say means that as much as the security consideration and also resources allow us. As for our proposal, our initial implementation in Norway will be present a kind of program that allow inmates to convert their remaining time in prison to different levels of rehabilitation courses. As inmates graduate from each kind of level, and the existing infrastructure will facilitate the decrease of their physical restraint. So, I mean, the change from the high security prison to lower security prison. This means that there are different kinds of enemies. They are divided into different groups, just based upon the severity of the crime they committed.
Okay, so I suppose after this, you'll be looking at changing sentencing from a saturation towards more of a rehabilitation requirements approach. Do you foresee any major challenges in doing so?
Yes, that's exactly what we intend to do. We expect the Norwegian public to be amenable to this kind of shift, giving their commitment to the principles of our rehabilitation. After all, even after the case of Andrew Breivik, the mass murderer, the public do not lose their faith and their belief in their penal system. We think that rehabilitation of the inmates needs the public support from outside to maintain their social connections with their friends and other social organizations and help them to reintegrate into the society outside. And the outside help is based upon the continuous social connections, which is quite necessary for the improvement of recidivism among the inmates.
Okay, this sounds really promising, but as I mentioned, Norway is a progressive country where its citizens are very supportive of the idea of rehabilitation. So what about more conservative countries like an Asian country? Will your proposal work in such countries?
Well, certainly the proposal that we drafted for Norway would not be accepted easily in a more conservative country. But that is not to say that our catalyst can only be implemented in liberal countries. In fact, to showcase the flexibility of our catalyst, what we have done is to design another proposal that is looking at implementing our catalyst in Singapore, which is a conservative country in Asia.
Okay, right there in Singapore.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I heard, chewing gum is banned there.
Yes, chewing gum is banned there amidst a lot of other things. Well, this is actually when you think about it, this is actually made possible only by the fact that Singapore has very strong government and very politically stable. And the strength of Singapore government means that it is crucial for us to appeal to the Singapore government in order for our implementation to be successful. Therefore, we have actually drafted a small economic analysis of our proposal just to assist the government in their decision making. So, in the short run, what we expect to happen is that our economic costs will be high, simply because our new facilities will need more investment, more resources, and more staff. However, in the long run, we foresee that our facility will help in reducing recidivism rates drastically, and this will result in three main benefits. Firstly, this will result in a drop in the number of prisoners being in prison, and therefore you need less resources to actually run the prison. Secondly, you will have a drop in the, assuming all else remains the same, you will have a drop in the overall crime rate, which means that you need less resources for law enforcement. And lastly, you actually open up access to a new pool of economically productive citizens, which were previously untapped economic potential.
Okay, in other words, short-term pain for long-term gains.
Yes.
But, well, the public of Singapore is more conservative and therefore more likely to seek retributive justice, right? So in other words, they may not be very comfortable with the idea of having a reward system for criminals. So you might want to tweak your system to make it into a penalty system, which will appeal considerably more to the government and also to the public. Because no matter how strong the Singaporean government is, it will still need the support of the people.
Yes, a very astute analysis. In fact, Singapore has this option where judges can exercise their discretion for certain offenders of certain crime. Instead of sentencing them to prison, they can sentence them to a certain number of community work hours. And this is in fact where we foresee our initial implementation coming in. What we will do is to replace part of this compulsory work hours with our courses. And what will happen is that the offender will go through our courses, and if he or she fails to meet the passing grade for our courses, the sentence, the community work hours will be increased. And so therein lies the penalty system. What we hope to see is that the public, through this system, will get used to the idea of coursework coupled with a penalty system for offenders of crimes. And eventually, we hope to see this being integrated into the penal code as a concept in its own. And in the intermediate state, what we see is that an offender, no matter what crime he or she commits, will be sentenced to a certain amount of jail time plus compulsory attendance of our course. And if he or she fails our course, you will end up extending your jail time. And of course, lighter offences will garner less number of courses and vice versa. Eventually, what we hope to see is that the jail time will be completely removed, in that you don't have a set number of jail years depending on your crime. Instead, you'll be sentenced based on the amount of mental rehabilitation that you need. And as you can see, this, although we use a different process, this is in fact the same endpoint as what we envisioned for Norway.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a few more questions for you. Firstly, what types of crimes are you planning to make eligible for your program? Are you going to make it applicable to all criminals or not?
Where our program is applicable to all kinds of prisoners who commit all kinds of crimes, except those criminals with serious mental disabilities. So, and also the system, as we have said before, the system just divided different inmates into different groups based upon their severity of their crimes they committed. So also we build a program like a university school. So the inmates in there receive education there. Just like a university, they have compulsory courses for almost all the inmates, but they also have specialized courses based on what kind of crimes they commit. Let's say, just say that if a criminal just commit domestic violence, I believe that they should receive different education from these inmates who commit maybe drug abuse or assassins.
Okay, fair enough. But in that case, how about violent offenders? Are you just going to let serial killers out running?
The most significant advantages tend to have problems so is that the decades spent in prison don't begin to help with the problem in any case. However, studies have shown that when serious offenders undergo rehabilitation in excess of 300 hours, serious improvements are seen in their progress. And as such, we believe that the long-term holistic approach that our proposal takes will have significant benefits for serious offenders as well as those.
Okay, but how about the possibility of inmates faking it and pretending they're rehabilitating when in fact they're not?
Yeah, this is something we've worked really hard to try and avoid, but we don't believe it will be a very significant issue because our program involves very rigorous texting throughout each course, and specifically the applicant course, to ensure that inmates understand what's being taught to them. Alongside that, there's a great level of participation in each of the classes involved. So we really need inmates to really get active and get involved with the programs we're running. Along with that, we've got the weekly sessions with the counsellor to make sure that to assess their ongoing process, ongoing progress, and also towards the end, that inmates will need to gain and hold employment. So we believe we're taking more of a holistic lifestyle approach in trying to rebuild the program, rebuild these individuals in a sense. And inmates' progress will be monitored in many facets on a long-term basis. So in this way, we believe that...
Okay, I'll just ask one more question. So I see you're trying to reward prisoners who display good behavior, but what is the difference between your proposal and the existing parole system which already exists in many countries?
Well, simply put, the parole system does not focus sufficiently on mental rehabilitation. We feel that it doesn't give sufficient recognition to the relationship between the mind and the body of prisoners. And furthermore, although sometimes in some parole systems, participation in prison programs is compulsory. However, this tends to be a one-off event rather than continuous. And therefore, by comparison, we feel that our program is much more sustainable. And
sorry, I have a flight to catch, so
okay.
Can I just summarize the points to see if I've understood it correctly? So in short, your catalyst for change consists of a shift from the traditional time-based sentencing to a more outcome-based one, after taking into account the future of the body, where the mind is likely to gain dominance over the physical body. And you're suggesting that instead of being obsessed over physical containment, members of society and governments should move towards an approach that aims to reduce recidivism and encourages inmates' reintegration into society. And this can be implemented either as a reward or a penalty system, depending on the culture. Is that correct? Okay, so thank you very much. I'll be in touch with you guys shortly.
Alright, hi everyone. Our catalyst for change will be focused on this concept called technological diffusion. So essentially, simply put, it's about there's a lot of wonderful medical technology out there that can change lives, but usually the people who need the most can't get access to it. And we will use the idea of a 3D network, which we elaborate on later to explain this more clearly. So the group, the staff will actually move out, will be doing a quick explanation of why this is worth doing, and then Radiance will handle this issue of international interactions with governments and how we deal with governments because they are annoying kind of organizations. And then Hannah will deal with the whole process of actually creating such a wide expanding network, really the more business logistic kind of thing, business logistic elements of it. And then I'll be focusing on the more technical aspects of 3D printing, the bounds of possibility, and Hiroki will be covering the future of what's possible. So to actually start with defining this problem, we didn't assume a linear path from the present to the future, because we had to deal with the idea of the future of the body in 30 years. So we took into account this answer, we tried to take into account this uncertainty of the future by actually starting from the present and doing some level of analysis where we considered factors that should affect the path of the future. Things like social views towards the disabled, technological diffusion, among other things. So by actually exploring this, we actually spread out to get a couple of scenarios, and we identified the key scenario which would be, we feel is ideal, and we tried to identify what is that magic critical thing that could lead to this future. There'll be other things, but we identified that the most major thing is technological diffusion.
So why exactly is technology diffusion important to us? So as Sean briefly mentioned, we have all these amazing technologies that could really benefit people in developing areas when it comes to restorative technology. However, there are a few barriers to this, one of which is price. So if you can imagine there's all these prosthetics out there, but these can cost in excess of tens of thousands of dollars. Now, if we're looking at developing countries, if if someone takes the option to get these prosthetics, they're often thrown into insurmountable debt, which now results with them relying on things such as the welfare system and their families and perhaps their savings, which reduces the autonomy that this individual may have, and also has a massive impact to their self-esteem and the way that they're viewed in society. Another axis is a geographical. So these technologies, they exist, but they may be concentrated in very specific locations. So we're looking at creating an infrastructure that will have far-reaching implications in different areas in different societies, rather than what currently is a shipment from other countries towards these locations. We're also looking at the good thing about 3D printing technology is it's extremely customizable. So rather than having a one-size-fits-all approach to our prosthetics, we can have ground teams which will take 3D scanning images of people that require these prosthetics, which will come into our overall structure, which will be covered a bit later, but it involves a feedback loop. So our product design phase starts with the people that actually require these products, rather than what is often considered the medical industry and their medical knowledge. So I briefly covered how the countries have been structured, and we'll go into that in more detail later.
Just 1 second. I want everyone to stop. I want everyone to close their eyes. Just 1 second. And you're at home. You're with your family. And then something happens. Someone is hurt. Someone's maimed. Can you do something about it? Of course. The first thing you do, you run to a hospital, you get something done. You get them maybe a new prosthetic, or you get them something they need. Now let's see the situation again. Still keep your eyes closed. You're at home. You're having fun. And then something happens. But you can't do anything. Your loved one, they'll just have to deal with losing a little bit of themselves. Because you don't have the ability, the technology, the access to what you truly need. This is why this network is so important. Because we can probably get this technology, but so many people's livelihoods depends on their bodies. We need to make sure that it functions for them. You can open your eyes now. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're in support of a short-term and a long-term plan. But it starts off with a pilot plan because it's very hard to get long-term funding. So with the pilot plan, the first thing we need is to go to governments and basically say, this is the structure of our network, which I will explain in the next slide. But just, if you would like, there's more details of this plan in the information in the executive report. And it's welcome to anybody you guys have specifically. So we're going to go to the governments in the area and ask for permission to set up this network. We need corporate funding also and corporate corporations so that we can get the technologies needed once we have the government. After that, we may go to other funding places. Well, we will need to go to get funding because any form of network, any form of catalyst will need some form of funding or some sort of support. So after that, we're probably going to the Gates Foundation, there's the Google Development Foundation, and there's the World Bank, which normally supports ideas like ours. And another big problem is human capital. Already in lots of areas, there are doctors without borders, engineers without borders, and many other NGOs that have high level human capital in the regions where it's developing at the moment. We can use their human capital, maybe get help from them, we'll be able to expand. And the main thing is to make sure that the people with these problems and the locals have their say in this. So making sure in this network, we're building a connection between the people, the problem, and the workers. This is just a basic overlook at our system. We're going to have a hub, which can be anywhere in the world, and they're going to deal with most accounting, and they're going to deal with the management and organizational problems. Also keeping contact with the governments, and they're going to look at all the relations. They will also develop protocols. But because we're going to have an internet network, it doesn't need to be in a developing country. It could be anywhere. Now, the biggest and probably the thing with the most potential in our system virtual hub, which is basically going to be an internet space where developers and mechanics and engineers can all put their ideas. We can hire people, we can get people, or even university students. There are new university degrees opening up for 3D printing, and we can get their expertise on this website, and they will help solve the problems. And within the cities, where we have the 3D printing within the countries, those will be mainly for the 3D printing of the goods and also for maintenance of goods. And then we will have field teams taking the goods out to the people who need them, and also collecting the data for the goods that we need to make. So it's a system that works cohesively. But there's a few problems.
Yeah. In general, no matter in which country that we choose as a pilot country, we will face many problems, either political or economic, either local or global. And so in order to make the pilot of our project a success, we have to face these problems and take various groups and bodies into consideration. And these three are the main problems that we came up with. The first one is local community reaction, which means will the local community and government welcome the project? What if there is resistance? What if national economic nationalism or trade protectionism are the main principles of their policies there? What should we do then? And the second problem is distribution of limited resources. Which means how can we execute the project fairly and equally? Who or what institution is responsible in selecting the group in need of aid? And the third problem is damage to innovation in the long run. It means how can we diffuse technology instead of diffusing devices? How can how to get the devices and our technology out there without harming the further ability of innovation of the local manufacturers and research institutes? And here are then we come up with some possible solutions. The first one is turn to some international organizations, such as UNCSTD, OECD, and like Hannah said before, Engineers Without Borders, etc. Why we should turn to them? Because first, they can act as the mediators between countries, peoples, communities, and our project, so that maybe it will reduce the local rejection. And the second reason is that many international organizations have access to human resources, especially the experts who have the say in deciding the group really in need, so that we can create a fair evaluating system. And the third reason is that the international organization, there are some international organizations focused on regional integration, like the EU and ASEAN. And if we succeed in our pilot country, we can get further help from these international organizations, so that we can make our project a regional one or even a global one later on. And the second solution we come up with is to strengthen this international intergovernmental cooperation, which includes BITs and PDAs as above, so that we can create a rather fair and stable market for the multinational companies, so that they have more confidence to invest, to sponsor, so that our project can run in the long term. And the third solution we came up with was to combine different forms of technology diffusion strategies. I've divided into two categories. One is market-based and the other is non-market-based. By combining different strategies, maybe we can lower the risks of local resistance and improve the network in a comprehensive way. And then let's talk about, well, our pilot country, which is Lao People's Democratic Republic. Why we choose it, and what was the problems and the solutions we came up with? So, first we need to know some background about Lao. Lao People's Democratic Republic has begun its transition from a centrally planned economy to a market one since 1986. And the trade liberalization and economic reform continues later on, and it has become a member of WTO since February 2013. Well, so it actually is getting more and more suitable for us to pilot our program, our project. And but problems still exist, which need to be tackled with if we want the approval of the local government of Laos. One primary obstacle is that the political ideology of Laos, which is socialism, might conflict with our project if most of the directors, sponsors, or investors of our project are from countries holding different political stands. But socialism can actually represent the full view of the political landscape of Laos. The Lao People's Revolutionary Party, or LPRP, as a much smaller party compared to the one in China, draws on traditional Lao values and modes of social interaction, counting more on personal and family relationships and patronage, which means it's more flexible on political issues. And what's more important is that Buddhism is the dominant religion in Laos, which is very important for our project, because if our project, of which the aim could be paralleled with the philanthropic spirit of Buddhism, we can choose to make allies with the local religious organizations. It will be much easier to push forward the spreading of our 3D printing technologies.
And just quickly, to go through the setting up the organization, to make sure it actually works. This is how it would work on the long term. We would have the central hub, as explained before, the virtual hub in the cities. Now, between the field work, the people that go out in teams, which would normally have quite a few experts, and some scanning material for the problems, would send that data to the virtual hub, which will then, when it's done, will be sent to the cities, where it will be printed, and then another field team will take it out to the people in need. So this is how we're going to actually deliver the goods and get it out there. As explained before, the startup, the funding, but the long and short-term planning are going to be needed. But there are still a few more problems on a smaller scale. For organizational structure, to make sure that organization actually works, we had to make sure that it was a comprehensive structure that took into account both the organizational teams, the different sections, and the production. So we chose a matrix structure to make sure that it was a comprehensive and it was able to go through all different countries quite easily. It's more complicated, it takes a bit more time, but this structure makes sure that any problems that come up can be dealt with quickly and easily. You've got to make sure. Some of the main problems is setting up the network, getting reliable internet within the area, because if you only have internet for 1 day a week, that's not going to be very good for getting across days and information around. So we've got to make sure we set up a strong network and we make friendships and agreements with the internet connection, internets within the area. We've got to make sure we have a high level human capital, as said before. This is the map of engineers without borders, and you can see that they're already in that central area. If you look at any other places, it's still the same. Also, we're trying to make companions and deals with biotech and 3D printing companies so as to make sure we have technology to get to these people and for all of the 3D printing and for the scanning to actually be reliable.
Thanks for the overview. So now we're going to consider some technical considerations. So you note that the 3D printers are located within towns. Why? Because they need power to work, they need internet access to transmit information from a few teams and to get data. And of course, transport links to resupply 3D printers and to get the necessary goods out. And finally, an educated workforce. Because if you consider in the long term, we need a sustainable kind of maintenance and people to run the 3D printers. In the short term, you can get specialists from NGOs like Engineers Without Borders, but ideally you want them to train the workforce, a local workforce to run it, so that firstly, they are more engaged, companies more engaged, and secondly, it's sustainable. And just some minor necessary evils, we probably want to do some level of digital rights management integration, which is a kind of anti-piracy technology, because of the involvement of biotech firms, they will be providing us with proprietary kind of data. And without this kind of guarantee and security, their cooperation is rather unlikely. So, for the initial rollout of the network, we'll probably be focused on simple plastic prosthetics. So we'll be using polylactic acid, which is a cheap and resilient plastic, which will be run off fused demonstration modeling printers, which are cheaper than the other options available now, but are still sufficiently capable to accomplish this goal. So now that's the present, so we can move on to the possible futures.
In the present, the big gap between European countries and developed countries exists in terms of health. For example, the human life span. And for Japanese people, the life span is 84 years. And for Australian people, Italian people, Singapore people, and Switzerland people, the life span is 83 years. However, for those people, the life span is 66 years. So, why does this big gap exist? And there are two main reasons. The first reason is the shortage of nutrition. And in those, the vitamin A and vitamin D are insufficient. And the shortage of vitamin A causes this problem, and the vitamin D causes this problem. And the second reason is infection. And this is a mortality in those. And number one, malaria and pneumonia and diarrhea can be curable by using antibiotics. So if we can supply vitamins or antibiotics for developing countries, we will be able to help many people. And in the future, we will be able to make medicines by using 3D printers. So if we can, so we will be able to help many people.
So that was a possible kind of application of 3D printing in the future. So the thing about this is it's modular. 3D printers can be enhanced 3D be added to the system to provide additional capabilities as they come along. So it's a focus on tech diffusion. When you have future tech, you can invent the system to bring people who need it. So other potentials would be metal prosthetics, drugs, printed glasses, perhaps even implants. And finally, this catalyst is worthwhile because it is currently implementable. The infrastructure of the network and 3D printers, it also has wide-ranging positive impacts, and there's massive room for expansion, not just in terms of countries, but also in terms of really bringing future technology to the people who really need it. Thank you.
I think, firstly, I would like to give a very big round of applause to 25 student participants for their amazing, diverse, and extremely interesting future-oriented projects.
Before we go into the formalities, I would like to say a couple of words. The first of which is I would like to thank all of you for having come here. On behalf of ANU, I'd like to say it's been an absolute privilege having you with us the last few days. It's been really great getting to know you, in my case, both down at Killaloe and today. And I think you've got a lot to be proud of. And I certainly hope that you'll keep in touch with ANU and with each other. And we very much look forward to potentially seeing you again. I'd like to give some specific words of thanks to Catherine and Katie, of course, to Zach, and facilitators Rebecca, Cheng, Nish, Dale, Emily, and Guy, to the judges, and fellow judges, and to everyone who's been involved in putting this together. It's been, in my mind, a wonderful event, and I hope that we've all been inspired by it, and we certainly have. So now let's kick off with the formalities.
We're going to make you sweat.
I'm going to give you general feedback before we announce the winners, so don't get too excited. This has taken a very long time because it was hard, and at some stage each team won, and then got knocked off for some reason or other, so we've had quite a bit of an argy-bargy outback. So you should all feel incredibly pleased with yourselves. The presentations were terrific. We were just blown away by your confidence, your ability, presentation style, we got excited about it, and John was sitting next to me saying, "Can I steal some of these ideas?" So I think you should be pleased with yourselves about that. One bit of maybe something you can think about feedback, which is a polite way of saying feedback. None of you thought about why wasn't your great idea already being implemented. So, I think it's always a good question to ask themselves. We were really impressed by two teams who looked at the problems specifically, that you really didn't just try and project a positive image, but also really reflected on what might have gone wrong, and that was the mental health team, technology vision team. And I should have said we thought that the Asian team was really terrific in terms of us thinking about innovation, so we liked all of you in your innovation background in particular, you did really well on that. And we thought you did all display really great thinking about the disciplines, thinking about cross-culture, really great teamwork. Some of you could have done a bit better on the gender balance, but it was pretty good for. So I'm going to hand over to
So hi everybody. That was the most stimulating experience I've had in a couple of months. I'm totally in awe. Well done. So I'm a guest here from industry, and I thank both Catherine and Katie for finding me, because if I'd said no, I'd really wasted my Friday afternoon. This is fantastic. So I have the pleasure, as the guest, of announcing the winners. I'd like to first say a few words about them. As we've spoken about already, there was a lot of debate in the back room, a lot of argument about the pros and cons, and I think the time we spent, and honestly with you guys waiting, reflects how hard it was for us. The winners today showed, I saw, a great demonstration of teamwork, which is a criteria. They really impressed us with the empathy for a discrete problem that they highlighted that hadn't necessarily been clearly understood. The issues weren't necessarily understood well in society, and yet they were prepared to offer a solid solution to that. So before I go on with more comments, let me announce the group that we believe is the winner for 2014. We'd like to congratulate the Academic Cognitive Enhancement Group. So first, Caitlin McLeod from ANU, Peter Charles, Cambridge Union. Caitlin McLeod, ANU, Peter Charles, Cambridge Union. If we just get a photo. Not at all. Sorry, sorry. Abigail Go. University of Singapore. Fanny Hu from Peking University. And finally, but not least, Natsuhiki Shibata. Natsuhiko. Sorry. Thank you. From Tokyo University. So we felt the evidence you guys presented was really solid. We had 5 criteria to work against. That stood out exceptionally well for us. As I said earlier, that you demonstrated really solid team behaviours and collaborated together. We were also impressed with your ability to understand the complexity of the system and unpack
again, everyone, all of the participants who still did amazing jobs and amazing presentations. It was extremely interesting sitting in on the judges deliberating. It went back and forth a lot. I think all of you at one point or another were in first, and then it just kind of got shuffled and shuffled and reshuffled and shuffled and reshuffled. So yeah, so you should all be very proud and very pleased with what you've done. I know that I certainly am, and Katie as well. That's yeah. And we're very much looking forward to dinner and celebrations with everyone tonight. And yeah, enjoy the fact that it's worthwhile. If you can relax. And we will, we have certificates for all of you, which we will hand out to you later this evening when the camera isn't running out of battery. I'd just like to quickly thank our amazing judges for coming and dedicating so much time, particularly Eric for coming dedicate all with us, but for everyone else for the, and Gabrielle for speaking. That was very, well, everyone, yes. We're having this conversation going on, and then this judge did this, and this judge did this. You're all fantastic. I feel very privileged to have been sitting in there with you and hearing your thoughts. Thank you so much for contributing your time and your expertise to this decision. We're very, very glad to have had you. And with that, we bring the largest, most diverse GXT to date, GXt2014, Future of the Body, to a close. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you.